what surprised you about home care?
The surprise was in finding that the helpful, the special connections could be so different in each person and all be wonderful, but not be the same. And I mentioned that before.
Yeah.
I guess that was a surprise. I hadn't thought along those lines.
You're watching A3 Aging Ann Arbor, where we talk about aging and what you need to know. I'm Faye Molitor.
And I'm Sheila Doeden.
Welcome to the show.
So thanks so much for joining us on A3 Aging Ann Arbor. We're going to continue our conversation with Ilene Segar, and we're talking about what in-home care looks like for she and her husband. Thanks so much for sticking around, Ilene.
My pleasure.
Where did you hear about us?
Well, it's interesting. I had a friend who came to this building. It was somebody across the hall, maybe, and she saw the sign in your window.
Yes.
So she called to tell me about it.
That's lovely.
And I followed up by calling and getting an interview. Yeah. We had a private person, and it didn't work out from her end, and so we were really needing something to fairly quickly.
Were there any surprises about what home care looks like that you were like, wow, I absolutely did not know? And I'm talking about the whole picture, the monetary aspect, the, communicating with the office as often as you are, or anything that was maybe a bit of a surprise for you or something that you think folks should be aware of.
Okay. The cost was not a surprise. I'd heard about it for a long time, but my feeling was if it was at all possible, we wanted to stay in our house.
Sure.
And I felt it would be better for Bob. I felt it would be much better for me. I like to cook. I like to garden. Those were important things to me. Especially because there are a lot of things I can't eat. So the financial part was not a surprise intellectually, but it really came to. I tend not to think ahead a lot. And now I'm looking ahead.
Yeah, sure. Oh, yeah. Yeah, because, in all reality and frankly, it's not cheap.
Right.
This can be a very costly thing, and it's out of pocket for the most part. There are only a couple of things that pay for our types of services at this point. Maybe one day on a governmental level, they'll realize that the need is there and there'll be more help from Medicare, whatever. But right now it's out of pocket. Long-term care covers our services if folks have long-term care policies or if they're a veteran. So those are the only two things at this point that would help with those costs. So yeah, just frankly, it isn't inexpensive because, we want to make sure that the folks that are coming in to take care of Bob and you are also taken care of by us. Their job is super important. And because it's an out-of-pocket expense to us, it ends up not, unfortunately, caregivers don't get paid what they should.
Right, yeah.
They just don't. And we pay them as much as we can, but it is not anywhere near what they should get paid. So, I just wanted to throw that out there so, folks are very aware that this can be a costly thing. However, most companies should be very conscious of the fact that they need to work with folks in that aspect and provide 1 hour all the way up to live-in care and be able to be flexible enough to only do one day, maybe once a month if that's what people need.
Yeah. We thought about the possibility of going into a continuous care situation, which you can do when there are two of you. You can do it with one, depending on where you're starting at what level. But my feeling was that wasn't going to save us any money.
Yeah.
Right.
Because in our case, because Bob needed people with him when he's ready to stand or sit.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not like they could just be called in.
Right.
Right.
So when you say continuous care, you mean like facility, like an independent or assisted living that you both would move into?
Well, starting with independent living,
Okay.
independent, assisted, and memory care.
So it would, the levels would change
Would
with the need.
change with the need,
Gotcha.
which is I had a friend whose mother started in a facility like that in Florida. Florida.
Yeah.
And this is one of the better things about Florida. And you might want to cut that out. And I was very impressed with that availability. But when I realized that in our case, that wasn't going to make the least bit of difference, even in independent living, we were still going to need the caregiving that we had. And I said to Bob, I would want to keep the same caregivers and move right in with.
Yeah. Yeah. But then at home, you still get to make your own meals.
Yes.
You still get to get outside and do the gardening, the therapeutic things for you. Bob's in his own environment.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a comfort level there. And yeah, Faye and I have talked a lot about that. People have not to say that living in those types of situations, right, in independent living, assisted living, there's the social aspect of it, right?
Absolutely, and that is missing. And that is definitely missing.
That is the difference between home care and living in that style of living. But you're absolutely right. People have a misconception. They think when they move into those kind of transitional living situations that maybe they're going to have everything that they need. And that a lot of times it's not the case. So you were very wise in your thought process about, okay, you did your research. What does that look like if we were to move into independent living? And would we really need more support? And what does that look like for us financially? And a lot of people don't consider that. So I feel like you have been looking forward all of the time because you've had that thought process.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like you're a forward thinker too.
I do too.
They aren't available 24/7. Like you said, if he needs to stand in that moment, you need somebody there to help him do that. And in that type of a situation, you're pulling a cord and waiting for them because they're working with multiple other residents.
And they're very short-staffed.
Yeah, they're very
I'm
short-staffed.
aware of that. But even years ago, if I would go visit somebody in a nursing home or a rehab place, and I could hear someone down the hall yelling for a half hour, for 45, I need to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And I don't think that situation is helpful for people living as long and as well as they can.
Well, that's why we do what we do.
Yeah.
Right. And there are a lot of folks that do what we do now. It's a beautiful thing because the need is growing.
Yes.
People are living longer with chronic ongoing conditions, and it's medical advancements, which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But the need is there for that extra assistance. In the 2 years that we've been with you, what surprised you about home care, and what maybe were you not so happy with about home care?
Don't know that anything surprised. Well, the surprise was in finding that the helpful, the special connections could be so different in each person and all be wonderful, but not be the same. And like I mentioned that before.
Yeah.
I guess that was a surprise. I hadn't thought along those lines. In terms of the things that could be improved. Well, I know that someone new coming into shadow is not always possible.
Sure.
But it's happened once or twice where the person had not shadowed and really had not had the training yet.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that they did a terrible job, but I was upset.
Well, and a little nervous, I'm sure, because they're helping Bob to a standing position or whatever they're doing. And if you're not comfortable with that, and Bob's not comfortable with that, the caregiver's not comfortable with that. Ugh.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that was true. It hasn't happened much.
Yeah.
But I think even lately has been, and I know that in all kinds of work, people are leaving and coming, but leaving and coming in droves. That's true for doctors. It's true for nurses. It's true for the groceries. It's true everywhere. So I'm aware that you are very challenged, especially in our case where we insisted on the people being vaccinated for COVID.
Oh, and and thank you so much on that aspect for being patient with us and trying to identify the right people. We do get there, Eileen. It might take a little bit because that extra stipulation limits us,
absolutely.
even though we do have a bigger workforce right now, but it is limiting us, and we appreciate your patience in that. But that's a huge challenge. I had a thought and I lost it. You have a thought?
I'm just enjoying talking to Eileen. So it even though there are challenges, at the end of the day, I feel like in what you're saying is that you're happy to be at home. You're happy to have caregivers with you and with Bob, even though sometimes it could be hard, right?
Sure.
But overall, you're pleased with home care.
I would say very definitely.
Good.
Very definitely.
Yeah. You feel like it has enhanced Bob's quality of life and yours?
Well, to tell you the truth, as he's become more dependent on people, he gets upset with me. And that's reality, and I don't think it's unusual. But I think even to have other people who are not like me helps. That helps when they're not like me. And
Eileen.
I think that's been helpful for him to have that source of where he doesn't feel this tension building up so much.
Good. Yeah. So I think I get what you're saying. You feel like he is able to relax a bit and enjoy his time, knowing that he has someone there that can just help him when he needs the help without feeling like he's disturbing anybody or you know what I mean? Because that's what they're there to do. And he feels comfortable with that.
Yes, I think good. Most of the time he wears a whistle during the day and he has a cowbell on his bed at night that he's supposed to ring if he needs somebody.
Right.
And both things he uses most of the time when he needs to, but he does forget.
Yeah.
But some of the time I do wonder whether he's not wanting to bother somebody.
Oh, bless his
that's
heart.
Part of who he is. And
I'm sure the caregivers have acknowledged some of that from him and are aware of the fact that he might tend not to ask for their help.
Right.
Even though we don't want to feel We don't want to make them feel like we're on top of them all of the time, but definitely expressing to him, that if he needs something, that's why we're here.
Yeah. And I would say when he has problems with an individual caregiver, it might be the feeling that they are on top of him.
Yeah.
Like at the ready, the second.
Right.
And that's probably the thing I think I'm trying to hold back. I'm trying to hold back some.
Understood.
That's hard to be.
And I can tell you just from I know what faces have been in there, and I can tell you that I can 100% visualize certain folks that they're big caring hearts, but they're also like, do you need, you know what I mean? Do you need something?
Yeah.
And how that could maybe be like, oh, for God's sake.
Yes,
I'm good.
Absolutely.
It's all in the care, but I can totally understand that. Well, I'm very happy to hear that it was very challenging for you to find anything about the home care that we've provided in 2 years that was maybe not so great. So that's good that there were just minimal things that maybe created a little bit of a challenge in the 2 years we've been there.
The beautiful part about it is that you're willing to communicate that with us, because if we don't know, we can't do better and we can't fix it.
Yeah, I'm a believer in that.
Yeah. So it's a real working relationship. It's a lot to
It is a
manage,
lot.
right?
Mm-hmm. Well, it is for me.
I know.
And I know that in my life, I have learned more in situations where I really blew it. And
Me too.
And it's like, and I think that's true for a lot of people, that when things go wrong, is when a lot of helpful information comes in. Because I know when things are going smoothly, I probably learn nothing at all.
No, got it. Absolutely. Okay, we're going to switch gears a little bit, and we're going to ask you the question that we ask every guest.
Okay.
And that question is, what does aging well look like for you?
Okay, well, I have to separate aging well and for me.
Yes, it's for you. The question is for you.
When you told me that would be the question and that you ask everyone, I didn't think about it very long. It really came right to me. And I said to myself, well, doing the things that make you happy, to continue doing the things that bring you joy, and to make sure you have social connections, and exercising, I know is important. I have never loved it, but I know it's important. And then I realized when I was thinking more about it last night, well, all three of those things would look different for different people. Again, the personality stuff.
Sure.
And I know that introverts get their energy from being by themselves, so they might not need the same amount of socialization as somebody who's an extrovert. However, it probably is very necessary for mental health and physical probably too, to have some connections, whether it's on the phone. I mean, if you live out in the wilderness, hopefully there's some kind of a mechanism to keep contact with another human being. Not that dogs couldn't be good. I think dogs could be good.
There's some therapy with fur.
Yeah, right. But I'm aware that it would look different. And even the exercise piece, for some people, it would be really important that they get as much as possible.
So I guess then in wrapping this up, putting this in terms of home care, would you do it again?
Yes.
Okay. And what would there be anything that you would change about doing it again? Would there be anything that you would look at different if you were to look at it now after having it for a couple of years?
Not that I'm aware of in this moment.
Well, that's good. That means we've been doing a good job.
Yeah, I think you have been, and I have these children that are knocking on my shoulder now. Make sure you've got enough help. I mean, particularly with the 24/7 after Bob got out of, they were terrified that I was going to.
Well, of course they were.
Muscles and
they want you to be able to live your life the way that you are accustomed to doing that. And they want nothing but the best for you and Bob.
I know that.
So
For
that's
sure.
their job.
Yeah.
And they want to keep you well.
Yes.
If you're overdoing it and you're stressed out about things, that can cause some health issues for you, Eileen, and they want to make sure that doesn't happen.
And I think the thing that they really worry about is like if Bob falls on top of me, or I mean, if something happened, and I broke even an arm, let alone a hip. So, and I'm aware of those things too. I don't think I'm like, I've chosen not to go willy-nilly on top of a tall ladder to replace something in our garage.
You know your limits. That's a good thing.
Good.
But as we all know with it, and I know he isn't diagnosed with Parkinson's, it's like Parkinson's
ism. Yeah.
However, it is, his symptoms are so indicative to Parkinson's more so than Lewy body, and falls are absolutely going to happen with Parkinson's. There's no way around it. So it's beautiful that you know your limits. And he does too. He doesn't want to fall.
Yeah, and he's been lucky. He's been lucky because he hasn't hurt him. Well, one time he put a metal piece through his hand.
Okay.
And, but again, he was very lucky. He missed blood vessels. He missed the nerves.
Wow.
He missed.
That was from the wheelchair, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. No, the walker.
The walker.
It was part of the walker handle. It must have been just the right angle. It was a smooth, pointed downward, the grasping part of the handle. It never should have happened. I was right behind him, and it was boom. It must have been tremendous force at the right time. But he didn't even have pain with it.
Right, isn't that crazy? So, that could be the Lewy body. That could be
that never occurred to me. That could be.
Okay, I guess I said wrap it up earlier, but we're going to ask one more question. If you had, if you have advice for anyone out there that's looking for home care, any thoughts or advice for them, since you've experienced it for as long as you have.
I would say one thing would be to go with your gut. Now, we interviewed 3 different agencies, and truthfully, we liked all the people that came out.
Yeah.
So it made it a little harder. But both Bob and I felt that this was going to be a better fit for us. And we weren't disappointed by that. So that's one thing. And I would say maybe don't dismiss anything out of hand. Each individual knows, what they can afford. So that's obviously a very big question. Maybe the sole determining question about whether you can even consider it. But at least talk about it with people, see what the pluses. Talk to people that have had it, if you can, and see what they found positive, with who or what agency they worked with, and not just what they found positive, but why they found it positive. Because I know if you are asking for advice from people, and they'll give you advice, But if you ask the why question, why did you like this or why didn't you like it? You can get a lot more information. I had that experience in finding a pediatrician. Someone I asked who they used, they told me, they said they hated him. And I said, tell me why. And when they told me why, I knew I would love him. and
That's fantastic.
I did. I did.
That's fantastic.
So I didn't think of it in terms of home care, but I would definitely ask the why question.
That's a beautiful thing. Oh my gosh. Well, we are like over our time, and it's been a great. It's been a great conversation, and that we'd rather go over our time than sit and try and think about what we could talk about.
Right.
And I think we touched on a lot. I can't tell you we touched on everything because there's just so much involved.
Of course.
With this. So we may end up doing another episode at some point. And, think about what maybe we didn't touch on, Eileen. But, we really, really appreciate your time. And we have enjoyed working with you and Bob.
Thank you
so much for the last 2 years. And by the way, it's Bob Segar, and he is a rock star, even though he is not the Bob Segar rock star. This episode was sponsored by Senior Helpers Ann Arbor. If you're looking for care or need help yourself, please check out our website. That was A3 Aging Ann Arbor, your source for all things aging.
Please like, share, and subscribe for more episodes. Thanks for watching.
This episode was sponsored by Senior Helpers of Ann Arbor.